Hey there, I'm Rick, 27 male. My ex-girlfriend Maya, 25 female. And I were deeply in love. Well, at least I was head over heels for her. I never thought she would betray my trust and cheat on me like she eventually did. When Maya and I first crossed paths, she had just graduated from college, and I was already working at a rapidly growing tech company. It was like a spark ignited between us from the beginning, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what made her so special. Our initial encounter took place at a birthday party for my friend's sister, where Maya and my friend's sister had been college buddies. I think she must have noticed my glances in her direction during the party, because she was looking back at me. After some internal debate, I finally mustered the courage to approach her. I wasn't as slim as I am now. I carried a bit of extra weight, which is a genetic trait in my family, and something I've had since childhood. Over the years, I've faced rejections, and even had girls laugh in my face when I tried to approach them, so I didn't anticipate anything different with Maya. She was absolutely stunning, and I braced myself for either a cold shoulder or her ignoring me. But she surprised me. She engaged with me politely, and we spent the entire night talking and having an amazing time. I finally felt good and confident after a long time, all thanks to that night. Our connection was so strong that we swapped contact information, and I wasted no time calling her when I got home. That marked the beginning of us spending more time together, going on lunch dates, and watching our friendship blossom over time. Maya stood out from other girls her age in a special way. She was kind, sharp-witted, and smart, qualities I recognized from our very first conversation. My attraction to her went beyond her physical beauty. What truly drew me to Maya was her intelligence and sense of humor. Not many girls had given me the chance to go on multiple dates, but Maya gave me that opportunity generously. Intelligence had always captivated me. I didn't enjoy being around people without ambition, direction, or future plans, and Maya embodied all of that. Fresh out of college, she was actively pursuing job opportunities, diving into a whirlwind of interviews, and so dedicated to her career path. Witnessing her commitment was inspiring. I hadn't experienced a serious relationship since high school, not because I couldn't maintain one, but because the girls were seeking something more than the love of a nerdy guy, which I admittedly lacked back then. Hence, meeting and dating someone like Maya felt like a significant achievement for me. It had been 3 months since she graduated, but Maya was struggling to find a job. She'd moved out of the college dorm and into her friend's place, but making ends meet was getting tough. Her parents weren't financially well off enough to support her after graduation. They'd made it clear that she needed to take care of herself. Unfortunately, her friend's living situation wasn't ideal, as the friend was often inattentive and had her boyfriend over frequently in their one-bedroom flat. This arrangement was negatively affecting Maya's mental health, so I suggested she take a break and move in with me. Even though I was just beginning my career in the tech industry, my salary was decent. I earned enough to provide for both of us without needing her financial contribution. We shared a spacious one-bedroom apartment, and I took care of rent, bills, and groceries all on my own. I never minded it because I loved her, and thought it was worth spending extra money on her. Blind love, right? Throughout our relationship, things went smoothly, and we rarely had any significant arguments. Maya managed the household chores like dishes and laundry, handled grocery shopping, and met my personal needs in bed. She was fantastic in bed, and I cherished every moment we spent together. Before Maya and I became a couple, she shared her past experience with an offensive ex-boyfriend from college. I assured her that I was a gentleman and would keep my word. Throughout my life, I had never struggled with anger issues and had never resorted to violence, even with women, so she could feel safe around me. Surprisingly or not, I had never been unfaithful in previous relationships and had no intention of cheating on her either. My job allowed for a mix of remote and on-site work, so I balanced my time between our home and the office, which meant we could spend a good amount of time together. To show my transparency and commitment, I proposed a rule that we'd inform each other about our whereabouts, the people we were with, and our activities whenever we went out. I did this to demonstrate my sincerity and to assure her that I had nothing to hide. As our relationship developed, we introduced each other to our families and gradually got to know each other's circle of friends, especially those who were close to us. I didn't have a best friend, but Maya did. Her name was Andrea. They were roommates in college and spent a lot of time together. Andrea visited our house frequently, and she felt like part of the family. Unlike Maya, Andrea worked as a manager at a popular retail store in our city and shared a home with her two sisters, who were also working professionals. According to Andrea, Maya had the opportunity to work at the same supermarket, but she declined in favor of aiming for a corporate job. It seemed Maya had grown accustomed to me taking care of her, though I never mentioned this to her. Andrea playfully teased Maya about this, calling her spoiled. Maya defended herself, saying she had worked hard during her teenage years and throughout college with various part-time jobs, justifying her desire for relaxation and care. I was more than happy to provide her that support. I had no reservations about taking care of her. Actually, I felt a sense of pride in being able to care for her needs. During an evening at a fancy restaurant celebrating my promotion, Maya surprised me by asking, "What if we got married?" Caught off guard, I stumbled for a moment, although it wasn't a complete shock. I'd been contemplating the idea of marrying her, but there were still many factors to consider. I responded that we would marry when the timing felt right, and her face lit up with a smile. Honestly, I wanted Maya to establish her career before taking our relationship to the next step. The thought of marriage and having a family had always been in my mind, and since Maya entered my life, I envisioned a future with her. I even had a ring ready to propose, but I was waiting for her career to stabilize first. However, she stumbled upon the engagement ring in my closet, which led me to make an impromptu proposal sooner than planned. When Maya shared the news with her best friend Andrea, the reaction was more shock than joy. But it wasn't the typical shock of a best friend getting married. It seemed to be the shock of her marrying me. I had anticipated greater enthusiasm, especially considering Andrea would be the maid of honor. Yet her response was, "Are you serious?" Andrea casually dropped her purse on the floor and held Maya's ring, then glanced at me while forcing a smile. Having spent a considerable amount of time with them, I could easily distinguish between her genuine smiles and forced ones. Though I didn't mention it to Maya, I had a feeling that Andrea wasn't genuinely happy for her friend. In the past, I noticed Andrea had always been excessively kind to me. Once the three of us were hanging out at our apartment. While Maya was in the kitchen preparing some snacks, Andrea subtly hinted to me that Maya might not be the person I believed her to be. I understood her insinuation, but I pretended not to catch on. Curiously, I asked for clarification, and Andrea vaguely mentioned that I would eventually figure things out. She was under the influence of alcohol at the time, and her message wasn't straightforward, so I couldn't draw any solid conclusions from that interaction. We began planning the wedding, but Maya's desire for an extravagant event clashed with my budget and priorities. She wanted a grand celebration, but I believed in life beyond the wedding day. I wanted kids soon, which meant a larger apartment and responsibilities. Despite Maya's reasons, I was against a big wedding. She mentioned the idea of a costly dream wedding, but we both knew it wasn't realistic. Surprisingly, Maya found a job a few months before the wedding. I couldn't afford her desired gown or her bridesmaids' dresses, so she got a job to cover her expenses. Her choice impressed me, and I hoped she'd continue her career after marriage. Although she had a job, she didn't contribute to wedding costs. Her earnings went toward her gown, shoes, accessories, and her bridesmaids' needs. So I ended up paying for the venue, hall, cakes, and almost everything on my own. About 2 weeks before our wedding, Andrea started texting me more often. She'd ask about my sleep and shopping, finding many reasons to text me. However, when we met or she visited our house to help Maya, she acted normally to avoid suspicion. I had to tell Andrea to stop calling and texting excessively, as I worried it might harm my relationship with Maya. I hesitated to tell Maya, fearing it could affect their friendship or the wedding preparations. Knowing how much Maya trusted Andrea, I suspected Andrea might be trying to seduce me or change my mind about marrying Maya. The night of Maya's bachelorette party, I got a call from Andrea while drinking with friends in the hotel club area where we were staying. She said she had something to show me. At first I didn't want to go because I believed she wanted to seduce me one last time. But when she mentioned Maya and a familiar name, I took one of my friends and went upstairs. I arrived at the hotel room where they were having a small party. Outside the door I saw Andrea waiting for me. She said something unbelievable, and when I opened the door, my heart sank. Just before opening the door, I heard soft sounds coming from their room, and my chest tightened as I touched the door handle. To my biggest surprise, I saw Maya sitting on another man's lap, who I assumed was the male dancer they had hired for entertainment. When she noticed me, she quickly got off him and struggled to cover herself with the sheets. Right away, I recognized him. Like Andrea had told me, he was her ex-boyfriend from college, and I couldn't hold back my tears. It was too much to handle, so I left without saying anything. My friend who had accompanied me upstairs was also shocked. He tried to talk to me or maybe calm me down, but I pushed him away and left. As I walked down the hallway, I overheard Maya yelling at Andrea, "Why would you do this to me? My life was going perfectly, but you ruined it." Andrea shot back, "I told you he deserved better. Rick has been nothing but good to you. I advised you to break up with your loser boyfriend and be with Rick, but you wanted to have it both ways." I didn't bother to turn around. It was hard to believe that Maya had been deceiving me all along. It hurt too much to accept, and I wished I could manage the pain, but I couldn't. Andrea even tried to come after me. I slammed the door in her face. I drank until I couldn't tell the difference between a shadow and a real person. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls from Maya and others. Maya was already wearing her wedding dress when I left the room. She looked so unhappy. When she saw me, she rushed over and asked why I wasn't getting ready for our wedding, and that made me really angry. Out of frustration, I pushed her away and declared that I was canceling the wedding. Everyone was surprised and kept asking why I changed my mind. Even my parents were stunned to see me like that. Nobody saw it coming, especially after all the money I'd spent on the preparations. But I was too heartbroken to explain. I glared at Maya, feeling furious. I went back to my room and locked myself in. From inside, I could hear my parents and some friends asking Maya why I made that choice. But she didn't answer. She just acted like she fainted. And a couple of people caught her before she hit the floor. After cleaning up from the previous night, I left the hotel room with a few things I had brought. I turned off my phone after leaving an apology message in my friend's WhatsApp group chat, and then I switched it off. Please don't blame me. I didn't know how else to respond. It's been a week since then, and I still don't know how to accept that I was being deceived. Update. Hey everyone, thanks for your comments. I really appreciate them. Some of you mentioned in my original post why I didn't check into my friend's sister's background before dating Maya. Well, the thing is, I messed up. I didn't feel the urge to do it thoroughly. Although, I vaguely asked my friend's sister about Maya during the early dating days. She mentioned they were in different areas, and that Maya was a friend of her friend. After college, they lost touch, so it didn't reveal much. Speaking of Maya, I saw her yesterday, and she was furious with me for not showing up at our wedding. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? She brushed aside what she did and painted me as the bad guy in this situation. She told her parents that I called off the wedding because I had too much to drink the night before and wasn't in my right mind. I believe she's confusing my silence with stupidity. I didn't want any ties with her anymore, and I couldn't fathom why she thought we could rekindle anything. To add to the mess, she admitted she was still involved with her ex-boyfriend while we were dating, which shattered me even more. She claimed it was because I was always busy with work and didn't give her the attention she craved. Right now, I'm feeling really confused. I never ignored Maya or denied her needs. She was the reason I worked so hard, to manage our expenses and take care of her. As I write this, the idea of her secretly being with her boyfriend still haunts me. She's even suggesting we set a new wedding date to avoid embarrassment. It's clear that her single apology for hurting me shows she never truly loved or valued me as much as I did her. It was more of a one-sided thing. I've told her I can't marry her. I just can't. In the meantime, I've asked her to leave my house and change the locks. After meeting Maya yesterday, I also talked to Andrea to express my gratitude for helping me avoid a disaster. Through Andrea, I learned that Maya was using my money to support her boyfriend, and whenever she asked for a large sum for something, she gave it to him. I didn't mention earlier that while we lived together, Maya went to the gym every evening. She was really focused on staying in shape, and I didn't think anything was wrong with that. But now I've discovered she was meeting her college boyfriend every day, often lying about being with Andrea instead. She only asked Andrea to cover for her. The reason Andrea was so surprised when Maya showed her the engagement ring was because a few days prior, Maya had told Andrea she wanted to settle down with her college boyfriend as she was deeply in love with him. Now I understand why Andrea kept texting and calling. She wanted to tell me what was going on, but I didn't give her the chance. Sometimes I feel like I brought this upon myself because I was so naive and got easily trapped. I've made my decision, and there won't be another wedding. I'll be meeting her in 2 days to return her things. I'll provide another update soon. Update 2. Hey everyone, sorry for the late update. I met Maya again for the second time 3 weeks ago, and something unexpected happened. Meanwhile, when I told her we were never going to be together again, let alone get married, she looked me in the eye and said, "Do you really think canceling the wedding will help you find a better woman? Lowell, no sane woman would want to be with a guy as overweight as you. Consider yourself lucky to have someone like me." That insult hit me hard. I'd never been treated that way, especially by someone I once loved, or who claimed to love me. That's when I realized the kind of person she was. It's tough to admit, but I understood that she had been using me all along. I know I'm overweight, but I didn't want a marriage where my wife felt like she was doing me a favor. I knew those kinds of marriages usually end up bad. We didn't talk much that day. She threw my engagement ring at me and stormed off angrily. I blocked her on all our shared social media and her number too. But before I blocked her parents, I went to see them and let them know what their daughter had been up to. They were really disappointed when they learned the truth. About a week later, after Maya stormed out of the cafe, a strange number started calling me repeatedly. When I answered, I recognized Maya's voice. It sounded different, more composed, and respectful. She got straight to the point and asked if we could meet because she had something important to share, but I insisted she tell me over the phone. However, before she could, she began apologizing. She wanted me to forgive and forget everything from our past so we could start anew. Can you believe it? Maya said she wanted to tell me she was pregnant, which seemed really strange to me. Without giving me a chance to respond, she added, "I'm carrying your baby, Rick," and I burst out laughing loudly. I told her it wasn't April Fool's Day yet, and she was already playing tricks. Then I hung up on her. As I expected, she didn't stop calling, so I had to block that number as well. Turns out her boyfriend left her once he realized she couldn't support him anymore, and when she told him about the pregnancy, he left. So when that didn't work, she thought she could fool me. Since then, she's been attempting to contact me using different numbers, and I've been declining her calls. Just 2 days ago, she showed up at my house without an invitation. Andrea was with me. When she saw Andrea, she verbally attacked her with nasty words, calling Andrea a disgrace who ruined her friend's life. She even accused both Andrea and me of having an affair and betraying her. I had to involve the police, and yesterday I got a restraining order against her. I can only imagine how tough her life must be without a job and someone to support her with the baby. As for Andrea and me, there's nothing romantic, and I doubt we'll ever become a couple. She comes by occasionally to see how I'm doing. Right now, I just want to get my life back on track, and hopefully my broken heart will heal eventually. Even though I can't forgive her for what she did to me, I suppose she's facing the consequences. I'm still working on healing and moving forward. Any advice would mean a lot. Thanks. Story 2. I can't grasp why people cheat. What kind of person are we to intentionally cause the worst pain to someone we promised to love? Someone who's been there for us through thick and thin, and who made countless sacrifices for our happiness. In the process, we strip away our loved ones' dignity, pride, self-worth, and many other things that can't be restored. My betrayal happened 25 years ago, shattering me completely. I recently read posts from guys whose betrayals also occurred years ago, which inspired me to write. Although advice, support, and condemnation aren't really relevant anymore. If you had asked me up until that day, I would have said I was fortunate. Despite coming from a modest family, I had everything else because of Katie. We were born in the same month, first children to young parents living on the same street, just a couple of blocks apart. So Katie was a part of my life right from the beginning, and we became close without even realizing it. We spent so much time together that it felt natural for her to be at my place, or for me to be at hers. By the end of elementary school, a favorite activity for boys and girls was to meet somewhere before going home and share a few kisses. It was never spoken, but I didn't kiss other girls, and she only kissed me. Starting high school was a tough time for me. I should mention that Katie was incredibly beautiful, like in the top percentile of gorgeousness. I had never seen anyone like her. All the boys noticed her. The informal rules from elementary school didn't apply anymore, and soon all the boys in school were trying to get her attention. They'd claim spots near her locker, push each other to catch glimpses of her between classes and at lunch. Boys in cars would intercept us on our way to school. I felt devastated. How could a 9th grade boy stand a chance against bigger, stronger, wealthier boys who had cars and money? My enthusiasm for school disappeared. I became gloomy, stopped studying, and even stopped walking her to school. I actually told my mom that I wanted to drop out. But Katie's mom came to the rescue by calling my mom to check on me. I hadn't visited in a while, and Katie was worried. She invited me over the next evening, and the three of us sat down to talk. When I explained my feelings, Katie reassured me that, in her eyes, I was, am, and always would be her boyfriend. My zest for life returned. However, the unwanted attention from other guys didn't go away. By the time 12th grade ended, I'd given her a promise ring which she accepted. We started planning our futures. She wanted to become a dental technician, while I decided on a general year of arts and sciences at university. We kept living with our parents to save money, and due to an unexpected offer from her parents, this worked out well for both of us. One of our favorite activities was driving out to the countryside away from city lights. We'd park the car, drape an unzipped sleeping bag over the hood and windshield, toss a couple pillows for our heads, cover up with a light blanket, and snuggle while watching the sky, talking and making wishes on falling stars before moving to the back seat. We had been sexually active since the summer before. This time we fell asleep and didn't wake up before morning. When we arrived, her parents were already making breakfast, so I braced myself for a confrontation. But instead, Katie's mom calmly invited us to sit down and eat. I waited for the other shoe to drop. They inquired where we had been, and at 19, I felt old enough to tell them the truth. It was time to be upfront. Both of them smiled, and her dad assured us that their main concern was our safety. He mentioned that instead of using the back seat, I would be welcome to sleep in her room. By the way, this was before cell phones were common, so parents didn't always know where their kids were or what they were up to. Katie's mom told me that it had been obvious for a while that we deeply loved each other and were inseparable. Her dad expressed pride that his daughter had found such a fine young man. Our intimacy was always amazing. We spent hours exploring each other's bodies and learning how to bring pleasure. I felt like I was on top of the world. To keep things concise, I'll fast forward, though I wish I could share more. The efforts I made to show her my love and the countless wonderful experiences we had as a couple could help readers understand the depth of my devastation when everything crumbled. After completing her course, she quickly landed a job. We got an apartment together after my 3rd year. I had decided, with her input, to become a teacher. While I could have pursued other paths, teaching gave us more time to be together, and that extra time with her was truly priceless. After my 4th year, I proposed, and we set a wedding date for the early summer after my graduation. We stayed in our apartment for 1 more year, and the year after that, I secured a job. We purchased a house with the intention of living there forever. Our plan was to start a family once I received a permanent contract. At the age of 28, we started our family by welcoming our son, David. I was incredibly proud of both Katie and David. I acted like Katie was the first woman in the world to give birth. The experience was wonderful, yet terrifying. While I had prepared for the birth, the intensity of it caught me off guard. I relied on advice from the 2 mothers and often played the role of a concerned caretaker. I was always wondering about her feelings, her needs, and what I could do to help. The birth brought Katie and me even closer. People often say that once children are born, they become the parents' top priority, surpassing their partners. Not in my case. Katie remained a miracle and a wonder to me. She had always been my best friend, lover, soulmate, and more. Now, she had become my very soul. Without her, there simply was no me. Occasionally, in moments of emptiness within my heart, I can almost recall these feelings. My pride grew even greater when Hannah arrived 3 years later, right after David. Katie's employers were generous to their staff. Every 2nd year, they'd give the hygienists, technicians, receptionists, and others a 5-day-long weekend. The women would plan everything, and the practice covered all the expenses. Once the kids were a bit older, David was 10, Hannah was 7, I made arrangements for a special trip. Instead of the usual visits to the grandparents, we were going to a distant city with a famous mall that had a massive water park, indoor amusements, a submarine ride, and more. Quite exciting for the 3 of us. When the time came, I drove Katie to the airport where she was meeting the others, and we set off. To get to the point on the 2nd day, as the kids and I were heading to the wave pool, something caught my eye and left me stunned. Outside the park, but on their way there, Katie and an unfamiliar person were walking hand in hand. In this very place. This destination was frequented by countless people from all over. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to note that anyone who had seen her before would immediately recognize her due to her appearance. "There's Mommy," declared Hannah. Tears were already flowing when Davy inquired, "Dad?" I suppose he wanted me to reassure him. The couple that was cheating found a pair of reclining beach chairs and before sitting down shared a kiss while hugging each other. Davy asked me again, "Dad?" But I was just gasping and couldn't produce any sounds. After the cheaters separated and took their seats, Hannah began running toward Katie, calling, "Mommy, Mommy!" As Katie recognized Hannah, she was in full panic, scanning the crowd until she finally saw us. I walked towards them, and she buried her face in the bath towels she had brought. I stopped in front of AP and asked Hannah to come to me. "So, jerk, I want to introduce you to the children whose family you just destroyed. I hope their faces haunt you for the rest of your miserable life." He responded with a practiced, crap-eating grin, then went and sat a few chairs away without saying a word. I told the kids to stay with their mom and quickly headed to our room. I changed as fast as I could, leaving most of my belongings behind, along with the kids. At the reception, I explained that Katie would eventually want to know my whereabouts, and it was fine to tell her I had left and to let her into the room to retrieve the kids' things. I'm not proud of it, but I thought that having the kids around might interrupt their plans. Then I began a very long and lonely 8-hour drive home, making several stops along the highway, as my sobbing sometimes became too overwhelming to continue. When I reached our house, I disconnected the phone jack from the wall. I sat down and wrote each of the kids a long letter, placing them on their pillows. I packed a hockey bag with random clothes and items I thought I'd need. My initial romantic plans for the bathtub were abandoned, and I filled it with water and poured in a significant amount of bleach. Then I gathered all the wedding pictures and photos of us from before we had children, along with any lingerie and intimate gifts I had given her. Even the wedding certificate was included. Before I departed, I arranged the house as if I were hosting the reception I had planned for her. In the previous week, I had purchased 200 white candles of various sizes and asked 2 of Katie's colleagues to help me collect oils and lotions she might enjoy. I arranged the candles like a pathway from the entrance to the bathroom. The bathroom was filled with candles on every available surface, and the bath oils and lotions were placed nearby. I had obtained new, large, hotel-quality white bath towels placed on the toilet seat. Atop them were the lingerie and intimate items I had purchased for the occasion, although I had cut them into pieces. The kids were to stay with their grandparents, and our neighbors were tasked with lighting the candles after I called them from the airport. Our bedroom was also filled with candles, and I folded back the sheets on her side of the bed and scattered rose petals over them. It was meant to be an unforgettable homecoming. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen table, took a few pictures of the kids, and left for good. In my state of mind, I couldn't face anyone, so I checked into a budget motel to wait for Tuesday, taking advantage of the long weekend. I informed my principal that I wouldn't be able to come in due to my situation. On Tuesday morning, I met with a divorce lawyer and outlined my terms. I would withdraw half the money from our checking or savings account, whichever had more funds, but would forego any claims to other assets. I requested visitation rights during holidays. I made it clear that all communication should go through the lawyer, as I wouldn't be contacting Katie directly, and my whereabouts were to remain confidential. I headed to a region experiencing a housing boom, aiming to find any basic job that could cover my expenses. The thought of returning to teaching never crossed my mind. My lawyer did an excellent job of keeping our communication focused on legal matters and ensured my location remained confidential. He also managed the arrangements for the children. I could elaborate on how I handled situations with the kids and my in-laws, but I want to circle back to my initial point. Was the affair worth it? It shattered me. Imagine a light bulb with a burnt-out filament. My spirit, my zest for life, my essence, all consumed. Self-esteem and confidence obliterated, with no chance of recovery. Today, years later, I still struggle to trust women. I can't bring myself to open up and be vulnerable. Friends try to set me up, but I always decline. My sexual desire didn't survive the affair either. I was mostly absent in my children's lives. 2 weeks in the summer hardly suffice. Was that worth it? Just a mistake? I find it hard to provide definitive answers anymore. But please, for the sake of all that's good, ladies, think about the consequences before engaging in a fleeting affair. Does your husband or boyfriend deserve this? Update. Dealing with the kids turned out to be relatively manageable once I accepted a significant compromise. I initially secured custody for Christmas, Easter, and 3 weeks during the summer. However, the kids preferred spending Christmas and Easter at their grandparents' house, and I recognized the benefits. So, through my attorney, I traded those holidays for an additional week in the summer. There were no major disputes about the kids. During summer, my siblings or parents would bring them over, and I'd enroll them in swimming lessons. Since I had only 2 weeks of vacation, I greatly appreciated the support from my family. Regular phone calls with the kids on weekends at my parents' place became the norm, though it wasn't the same as being there in person. As they grew older and could drive, I allowed them to choose their plans. Usually they visited, except when sports got in the way. I helped David secure well-paying summer jobs, so he willingly spent the entire summer with me after grades 10, 11, and 12. They would independently visit about every other Christmas. I didn't keep track meticulously. Over time, Hannah and I developed a strong connection, as she wanted to comprehend my pain and its impact on me.